Welcome to the Feminine Force with Caroline Murphy-Bennis, myself, and tonight, Natlie Short. We have asked Natlie on tonight because she is a calm birthing representative, expert, advocate. We're going to hear more about that tonight. And she's also done a lot of work with in her parents' nest, working with parents to really create beautiful environments for lovely newborn babies, which is just the most joyful thing I think anybody could work in. Is working with babies is amazing. So thank you for joining us, Natlie. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
You're very welcome.
So amazing to have you here, Natlie, and I've heard a lot about you before this.
Yes, thank you.
So really excited to get to know you and to hear about, your amazing work that you're doing in the world. Welcome.
Awesome. Well, I definitely do love what I do, which is very fortunate. Yeah.
So tell me about that. It's actually a lot of responsibility, sort of helping mums have a baby. Like I feel like I've been quite blessed. I've actually been invited to about 4 births. I think I've been there to support women in their birthing. Plus I've had 3 of my own. I actually thought with the last one, I thought, oh yeah, I've done this before. I've nailed it. Now I know what I've got to do. And then you get there and you go, oh God, like none of that's going to help me. Like it just doesn't, every single one was different, right? Well, here was me thinking that I've seen 4, I've done a couple more, and this last one, I'm just going to be an expert, but that doesn't happen like that. But it's a beautiful thing to be able to do. And I'd love to hear how you actually ended up in that space, because obviously it's a gift and something you're passionate about. So love to hear your journey there.
So what am I now? Just turned 50. My eldest is 29. So Riley, when I was pregnant with Riley, I went with, and how I came to be with Calmbirth. So I had my first baby, but I went into early labor. So I went into labor at 29 weeks and didn't get the opportunity to book into my birthing class, or actually I had booked in, but I hadn't actually participated because I'd gone into early labor. So I didn't know anything about my breathing, my positioning, my cervix, my uterus. I had no idea what was going to happen in labor. So when I went in really blind, I just felt that although I did go through that labor, I remember thinking, I'm never doing this again. And I remember clenching my fists and kind of trying to grab it, like almost get out of the bed and run away from the contractions. And after the birth, I think I was quite positive, but I just didn't feel really connected. I didn't feel like I was very empowered. So I didn't feel like I used all my power. I was relying on everyone around me to tell me what to do. So then 14 years later, when I was pregnant with my second, with Lilly, I again got really scared, thinking I was going to go through this again. And a colleague that I was working with, a midwife, said, why don't you do Calmbirth? And I didn't really know what it was, but it sounded okay. It sounded like, great, I'll have a Calmbirth. And when I went to do that class with the facilitator, the guy that started that, Peter Jackson, everything I learned was what I did the opposite in my first labor. So the idea is that when you have fear and when that causes the tension in your body, and that tension then causes that pain. So learning Calmbirth was learning about how to breathe, how to stay calm, how to relax, and actually work with your body and your hormones and your uterus, as opposed to doing the opposite and working against it. So I had Lilly, I had her in the bath. I was super calm. I meditated through that labor. I didn't feel pain. And I used to get a little bit worried about saying that to people, because I didn't want people to be in discomfort and kind of going, well, Natlie said there's no pain. But for me, my experience was that it wasn't discomfort. I met it. I kind of was a participant in the labor instead of trying to get away from it. I just surrendered. It's all about surrender. I taught on the weekend, and I said to the couples there, it's really about balancing the control and the surrender. And it's that sweet spot right in the middle that when you find that sweet spot, that's when the bliss is, but it's kind of this juggle of managing the two. So then, because I had such a great experience and I knew it was based on science, I would be sitting on the edge of my seat telling all the women that come in pregnant that were scared at a 12-week appointment of their labor at 40 weeks, that I'd be sitting on the edge of my seat saying, this is how our brain works, and this is how when we do our breathing, and these are the hormones that are triggered. So in 2009, I did my training to be a Calmbirth teacher. And then it was after that I went to uni to do my midwifery degree, because I wanted to sort of marry the two together. The Calmbirth, I didn't need to be a midwife, but I wanted to go and get that expertise. And so that's why I do it. And I do it because I know it works, but I also do it because I think women are portrayed as being crazy, out of control, and have no idea how to labor well. And funnily enough, and I can keep talking, can I? Yeah.
Yes. Keep going.
Funnily enough, the whole like birthing without fear came about because there used to be an obstetrician in the 50s. His name was Grantley Dick Reed, and he used to go to women's homes when they were laboring, and he would give them chloroform, because the women were seen as being too hysterical and they needed to be quietened down or numbed down. So my nan had this. So it's quite interesting. It wasn't that long ago. And he watched one woman labor, and she actually said she didn't want it. And at the end of that labor, he had a conversation with her and said, "Oh, didn't you have any pain?" And she responded with, "Oh, was I supposed to?" So that's how the whole thing came about. When you have fear, you have tension, you have tension. It's about looking at our belief systems, kind of like life. It's a life skill. It's definitely a life skill. But that's why I do it. I love it. I absolutely love doing it. Yeah.
It's so interesting what you said about your first son, though, because I would say
your
daughter. So I had a very similar situation with my first couple of labours, and I had twins the first time, actually, and because they were twins, I was small, so it was quite an easy birth. But my daughter that followed was actually the size of both the boys put together, so it wasn't so easy. But I remember feeling that disconnected. I'd heard mums say to me that giving birth was the most empowering thing that you could possibly do when you get to that place where you think, you're between a rock and a hard place, but you find something in you to push through. And I remember thinking, I can't remember being in that place. I can just remember being, like my first one, I was up in stirrups, which was so that wasn't that long ago. And that was so old fashioned, right? And it was just like I had this experience where I thought I didn't really get to feel that in myself, because it was controlled. It was like, and so what you say is so true, like to be able to give women that empowerment back, because the women that I've spoken to that have done it, it's just been like this life-changing moment for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I was chasing it afterwards. It's it's funny. It's I actually like the partners being in with the women though, and learning the class, because they hold the space. So if the woman does lose her way because of the hormones, or being vulnerable, or something gets triggered in her, if the partner knows exactly what to do and hold that space for her, then it's kind of, they're working together. And as thinking about parenthood, as you transition into parenthood, you want to lay a good foundation. Like how I kind of say to them, how would you be if your baby's crying in the middle of the night? You're not kind of going to go, "Oh no, I'm too tired, I'm not getting up to feed tonight." You just you dig deep. And that's why I think birth is the way it is, because it's kind of making you rely on your inner strength, because you need that for parenthood. I think once you get, I think birth's the easy part compared to parenthood. I really
so true, isn't it?
Yeah. I really do. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's funny, I absolutely love everything you're saying there on so many different levels, because I can see myself, the way your own progression of the type of person I was. And we were only talking before this about, I suppose your own development within yourself. And when I was in my first child, Lauren, I had natural birth, but it was so much unbelievable agony. I couldn't. But then when I look at the type, I think, of holding on that I had, of control and perfectionism at that stage that I had within myself, I can see how I nearly had to be broken out of that. Like this was really difficult for me to kind of to let go of control, that kind of way. So there was obviously so much holding on. But I remember after coming through that, the other side of having Lauren, it was like it's like an awakening as such, because I saw life completely differently. Like my vision of life was like as if I had this veil on me, and that was taken off, and I just saw life. I couldn't recognize my own home. Everybody looked different. everybody looked completely different. Everything seemed so different. And I thought I was after winning the lottery. I just like, I realized that at that point I would have been kind of very career driven, materialistic and stuff. And then I realized that, God, money means nothing. Like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever happened to me in my life. So it was this massive change. And then when I had my second child 2 years later, I had a really easy birth, natural birth, but it was really easy. I actually knew it was going to be a boy before, I just knew it's going to be a boy. And I was waiting for him to come, and I was really excited about him coming. And I was like talking, like nearly, even though I was in the hospital, and I didn't know anything about. Now I have an understanding what you're saying, but also his disposition after the birth, like he was so calm and he was such a lovely, smiling baby. Where Lauren, I think, had been through a kind of a trauma nearly herself when she was, because of the tension in the birth. And I don't know if you see that with babies afterwards, that is there benefit for the child afterwards when the mothers have this beautiful calm birth, because I feel I've read about this, and I've heard about the effects on maybe how the baby settles or the connection, because
I think
they're in the birthing process as well, I guess,
I definitely think there is, but I also think there's I also think there's a lot of variables. So I think women that come into to birthing classes, they're kind of like, what do I need to do? It's almost like it's a consciousness of female guilt or something. It's like a motherhood guilt. Like, I want to do it right. I want to breastfeed right. I want to bath right. I want to, like, everything's like it's a black or white or right or wrong. I like skin to skin, feeding the first hour. I think there's lots of little elements. I wouldn't just pin it down to one thing. Definitely, birth trauma, if the mother's holding that on, then the mother's carrying that emotion, and then that can be sort of transcended down. But I wouldn't, this is just me personally, I probably wouldn't go, oh, this is specific for that, because I think it sets women up for failure, especially the whole skin to skin thing at the moment. Like, people are going, oh, I didn't get skin to skin in the first hour. And I think that, and I go, and I try and just let them off the hook. Okay, yes, it does. It's great for breastfeeding. It's great for body temperature and bonding and connecting. But if you don't get it, it's not going to mean like your baby's not going to be in love with you. Well, I don't know. It's just, I think there's a lot of rules, and we want to follow rules all the time. I think trust your intuition is a huge one. And Caroline, hearing that you had that life-changing experience when you had your first, I think that's amazing to even recognize it at the time. I still don't see a lot of people get that. They're still adjusting, especially the first couple of years.
And that intuition, isn't it? Like, I feel like, and we talk a lot about this, like the feminine force, like actually really coming back into our own feminine force, our intuition, our deep inner knowing, which I feel that not only has our society sort of, like, we've suppressed in us, but as women, we actually hand over that, like we're so conditioned. We've actually walked away from our own intuitive powers, like, I know for me anyway, I did. So I think it's beautiful bringing that back into the birth process, like, it makes so much sense that if we can tap into that, the birth is going to be so much easier.
Yeah. I quite often say to women, like, I'll do, at least 20 different positions in class. And then I go, but you know what? I know that your body will know what's right for you and your baby on the day. So these are just to practice so you don't feel uncomfortable getting into weird and wonderful positions. But just trust whatever position you get in is the right position for you, because and how your labor unfolds is the right way it's supposed to unfold. Like you said, Caroline, you learn about yourself, or, if you have a premature baby. I never thought having a premature baby, I'd be then sharing that story in my birthing classes. I think every single thing happens for a reason. Sometimes it's not always for our head. We don't understand it with our head. And I've only recently thought, things I don't understand for my head, I trust are for my heart. And it's just, that's kind of, it's kind of my bit of my philosophy, I guess.
I like that. What was that? Things I don't understand with my head, I trust
my
with
head,
all my heart.
I trust it for my heart. I trust it's for my heart. So it's for my growth, or my spiritual growth, or my,
That's great. I love that.
Yeah, and the fact that I love the way you frame it, though, around empowering women, because it is an area that I suppose we don't we haven't taken ownership of, again, because it seems to be like you're saying as well, a lot of pressure around women, especially in Ireland at the moment as well, trying to get women back to breastfeeding, because it's been a cultural thing that is being taken away. And like my mother's generation now wouldn't have breastfed. So when women are coming, younger women are coming up nowadays, like the midwives and the hospitals are trying to re-encourage women to breastfeed, but the mothers, the grannies, are saying, oh no, don't do that, your freedom will be taken away from you. You have to stay at home, you won't be able to get anybody else to look after the children, X, Y, and Z. So it's like this cultural conditioning, which is funny because the opposite really is that you have great freedom when you breastfeed and X, Y, and Z. And it's like, as well, like you said, all those stories of it's going to be so painful, it's going to be these negative connotations that you go into birth with is very disempowering, isn't it? And I just love what you were saying about even just the mindset of seeing it as a natural thing, and bringing that back into women's psyche, really, as kind of collectively, I think is amazing.
We can do it.
Yeah, because we're doing it.
Yeah, we're doing it. Women, and you know what?
We can do it. We're designed to do it.
Sorry, we're going to talk over. We're going to say all women together. They keep talking. Women though, at the end will quite often say, "Oh, I actually thought it was going to be harder than that." So usually, when we fear something, it's way harder in our mind.
Yeah.
I often say to my husband though, like if men were birthing in a movie scene, it wouldn't be like they're screaming and they're out of control. It'd be like, yeah, let's birth like Thor, and you're so strong and you can do this and you're a powerful man. Don't you think? Like, I couldn't imagine them doing a scene of a man screaming, laying on his back, which is the worst position, on his back, kind of screaming, I can't do this, I need help. I need, it's like, because women are seen as meek and mild, it's I have never seen a birth like on TV. I will say that, where the women are out of control and they really, even those that haven't done classes, they still have that instinct, that's, I think women surprise themselves.
Yeah. And you know what I think the most scary thing is? The unknown, the silence around it, the silence. Because to me, like, it was like, it wasn't talked about. You knew nothing about actually what happened culturally, I mean, in families and stuff, like it's kind of kept quiet as such. Like, I know my mum, when I went to talk to my mum about it, I didn't realize until afterwards that she actually, for her first child, she'd like that. She was anesthetized. She wasn't even awake for it, So I was kind of, wow, it's amazing that like that we have been. It's been like the power has definitely been taken away, and I love to see that there is a lot more people like coming back, like yourself, and talking about this and giving an option for women to kind of start to see it in a different light, I guess, and bringing the beauty back into the process of birthing, I guess,
back into it.
Yeah,
the beauty. It's nice.
Yeah, and you know what? It's given, and this is just a little something small, but oxytocin is the hormone. So oxytocin is a hormone when we make love, when we orgasm. It's also the hormone that we need to contract the uterus. So I'll say to couples, look at the space where you're laboring, and is that somewhere where you feel like you could make love? Because if you were making love and someone was walking in and out, kind of going, how long have you got to go, turning the lights on, making noise, interrupting you, you'd kill the mood. And the same thing happens in labor. It really does. Like, you've got to keep that mood.
Yeah.
It's just, I know they all giggle when I say it, but it's just, you've got to keep that same energy in the room and keep the lights dark and be connected with your partner. And it's just, it's an intimate experience. It shouldn't be.
God, that's so far removed from where we're at, though, in a lot of cases, that's amazing to say that, because when you think about it, it makes complete and utter sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely does. I say to them, have the lights off, have candles on, put the fairy lights in the room. And there's a science behind why that works, having the lights off. It's just, anyway, I could go on all the science stuff of it forever.
I've got a question for you, Natlie, and this is going to be this is actually what's the word? Like, this could be very controversial. This question, that's the word I was looking for, controversial.
Great. Love a bit of controversy.
Okay, so in the past, men weren't allowed in for the women's
That's
labour.
right.
And when we go back a couple of hundred years, it was the women. The women did the birthing. The women did the birthing together. They went to the women's birthing sites and men weren't allowed there. And then we went through, like more recently where men just didn't go in and women did it all themselves. And now we're coming up to the time where women are almost like, you were coming in with me. You got me pregnant. There's almost like this real expectation, right, that men come in. Now, I have discussed this with a few men, and there are a few men that have commented that it wasn't necessarily a great thing for them to be part of the birthing process, and that it did impact the way they approach sex afterwards. I've spoken to a few women that have also felt that maybe it is a women's thing and it should just be for women to support women. But there's a lot of, and once again, I've spoken to a lot of women that are like, no, I want my partner with me. So I would love to hear your thoughts, because I'm sitting on the fence with this one, but I'm like, oh, that's a bit controversial.
I think men should be in the room. I definitely think men should be in the room. Maybe where they're positioned in the room might have a bit of a different impact if they're sort of down the other one, down one end as opposed to the other end. But I definitely think, and what I see and what I teach is that it's about the two people doing it together, laboring together, and really supporting each other in positions and giving, positive affirmations and telling her she's doing a great job. Because I think how you work together as a team through labor and really rely on each other and support each other is really going to set you up as you transition into parenthood in a positive way. That's just my belief. But I also know that if there's a partner, I've had some dads where they kind of go, I'm really scared, I don't want to go in, and I'm going to probably ruin it for her because I'm going to be too nervous. So they might take their sister in or their mum. Totally fine, especially if they've had that conversation beforehand. You'd rather have it beforehand than go in and then they're kind of sitting in the room going, I don't know what to do, I can't do this. And then she's kind of got to, look after him. But I think it's a great thing that they go in. I really do. And even the feedback that I get teaching the couples, my husband said it was the best course he's ever done. What did I say? One of them in particular, even on the weekend, one of them just said, up until now, the woman said, up until now, I felt like I've been pregnant, but now I feel like we are pregnant, like that, both of them. So you really do. Great. Yeah, and I don't know. I just think the dads tend to get more out of, and partners, but the dads especially, because they're not talking about it as much as women do. They get so much out of it, and then they're just, they've got a to-do list. I think men worry that when they get in there, they're not going to have, they're going to be in the way, or they're not going to know what to do. But I think they do way more than, they're doing acupressure points, they're doing massage, they're doing, positioning and showering. Not so much getting in the bath, but they get in the shower with them now, and it's good. But yeah, did that answer the question?
I wish I'd come to see you. Yeah, it did.
Oh, you know what? I think everyone should do this class. It's just, anyway, that's just, it's a life skill. Yeah.
It seems to be something like, you can take with you forward from there. It's not just something that's just for the birth. That's basically, it's part of your growth, is it? Like you say, I love that kind of.
Yeah.
I suppose maybe it's an opening into kind of self-knowledge, for people as well. To take them into that journey. Maybe I think when people on their journey of life, sometimes certain things create that atmosphere to be able to go into that self-inquiry. And I think, the birthing, we talk about transforming, and growing and stuff like that. And it's for me, especially with my first with Lauren, like it was such a transformational moment, where I was like a completely different person after it, where I just love the idea of your coaching around that and setting people up. And even when you're saying bringing the partners into it, so they're like nearly on the same page going forward there from that point. I love that idea.
Yeah, definitely. It's I think it's like on one level, the baby's almost coming through the cocoon out of the womb and into another world and transforming on many levels. And a woman is doing the same thing. She's transforming herself and her power and her strength. And I love teaching my kids. If I see a scene on TV of a movie and the woman's kind of screaming and not knowing what to do, I kind of go, oh, labor's not like that at all. Like you have this power within you, and labor cannot be stronger or too hard for you because it is part of you. So it's kind of like saying a wave can't be too big in the ocean for the ocean because it's part of the ocean. I don't know. That's just me. Like, yeah.
Like you said,
I've never thought about that.
Yeah, but like if you're joining, if you're becoming one with the pain as such, like you say, you're riding
power. I say power.
Yeah, the power. Like you're riding it, going along with it. You're not resisting it. Like where you're saying that the pain is when you're resisting it.
When you resist. So the science behind that is when we have fear in our body, we get adrenaline. We activate that fight or flight response, and what happens then is blood supply goes to our arms and legs because we're ready to either fight a perceived tiger, or run away from the tiger. But you actually need that blood supply around your uterus. And for your uterus to contract and bring your baby out, you need oxytocin. So you need that hormone of love. You need to do things like, physical touch or words or music, so you there's a science behind why our body works the way it does. And most women get scared in labor. When the adrenaline comes in, the oxytocin slows down. So therefore you're actually slowing your labor down. So it's that's the whole premise behind Calmbirth. There's something else I was going to say there. Hopped out of my mind. Can't remember. It'll come back.
I think that's amazing, though. Even the fact that when you think about how programmed we are to be fearful of our own natural process, like through movies and stuff, and seeing these versions of labor, and even, I suppose the stories that you hear, and it's like we are so programmed to feel fear. And, I have got a funny story with my first, because I had twins first, and I had this thing where I just, from almost the moment I was pregnant, I kept seeing in my mind newspaper headlines, woman has fastest twin labour in history of hospital, right? And I just saw me sitting up really comfortably and happy with this twin in my vision, right? And I did that every day, every time I could think about it. And then I had these boys on Boxing Day, and I actually ended up in the paper with the boys.
No way.
It was the easiest birth. And the doctor said, I've never seen an easier twin birth. And he said, because I was walking around, I was like that day walking around, you couldn't even tell that I'd had these babies, right? Because they weren't big, they weren't underweight, but they were just, because they're both quite small. And it was the easiest. And the doctor said to me, we've never seen a twin labour that's that easy. But the thing was, I couldn't do that with my second child because I'd already been through labour and I knew what to expect. So when I was like painting this beautiful picture, I'm like going, I know that it's not that beautiful. It's really hard. It's really hard because I knew.
So, but you painted that picture, then you got that. You said it's really hard. So that's interesting.
Yeah, it is true.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's very true. I didn't find it quite as easy the second time.
Yeah, I think that the power of thought, belief. I picked the birthdays of my kids. Like I was like, Lilly, I wanted on a Friday. Tiger, I wanted, he was due on the 1st. I'm like, okay, you need to come on the 2nd because I wanted all even numbers. I don't know how my brain thinks sometimes. And so he came on the 2nd. And I say to people, make a vision board. Make a vision board. Stick it in your shower and make a vision board of all the things that you want in your labor, because it makes, and some people will send me pictures back and they go, oh, Natlie, when you told us that, put words around and pictures and candles, we were thinking, really, how much is that really going to help our labor? And then they come back with their second, they go, look, these are the pictures for my first labor. And they go, that really worked, because when we got to that point where we thought we can't keep going on, we looked at this, whether it's an affirmation, I can do this, or I am doing this, or, I'm strong, my body's designed to do this. It kind of got us through. And it's like, I love people. I love women. I follow women. I mean, obviously, Lisa, I love Marianne Williamson. I love Taria Pitt. I love Bethany Hamilton. I love following women that face the unthinkable, especially with their body. Taria Pitt got burnt, and Bethany Hamilton got her arm bitten off by the shark. And they kind of come back and do these amazing, amazing things that the body wasn't even designed to endure and do. Our body's designed to labour birth. And I go, if women can do that, we can do this. Yeah. And unfortunately, every time I do a class, there's always somebody there telling me, oh, I meet people in the street and they tell me labour's really awful. It's going to be really hard. And it's almost like they've had their war wounds and they want they don't want anyone else
Everybody
to
else
have a
to.
better experience. It's really weird. It's a really weird thing. Women could rule the world if they stuck together,
Yes.
Yeah,
but they just
I agree.
Yeah.
Yep, I really do agree. You know,
The power of thought, right? And because you can absolutely get into the fear thing, and I've watched that so often, especially with labour. Like the labours that I've attended, the one where you know the girl went in and she was just like, I was just focusing on a leaf and I meditated and I just stayed in my zone, and she wouldn't even allow people to talk. She was like, if you want to have a conversation, go out of the room. I'm just in this. And her labour was amazing. And then I've also seen one where the fear of the pain that's to come meant she had to have all this intervention, and she had no control over the whole thing because she just put herself in such a state. So, you know, really, really interesting.
Yeah, surrender is hard. It can be a hard thing in life. So I think when you're trying to learn to surrender and you're surrendering to your power, and if you've been taught that you don't have power, it's really hard to hand yourself up to something that you don't believe you've even got in the first place. You know, it's kind of, you know, I think women are incredible. I see women are incredible. I see what they do, and I think it's, you know, it's a blessing. It's just, I'm very fortunate. But I love teaching the class, but I also love seeing the light bulbs go on in the women. You know, they kind of just go, wow, you know, they come in nervous and then they go, I'm actually excited to give birth now. I can do it. I go, yeah, you
beautiful.
can. You know?
That's amazing.
Yeah, so
no wonder you love what you're doing. You know, it's fantastic to be able to kind of ease people's fears and worries, you know, and to give them tools to be able to pass that on. And I'm just thinking as well of like the power of the grandmother, like, you know, your own mother, or me, you know, mother of my daughter, you know, the power of like how I speak about birth and how, you know what I mean? It seems to be, that seems to be really important, doesn't it? You know, kind of painting that picture in their minds of how it can be, you know, and rather than, you know, giving that, you know, tragic story or whatever, you know, that people are passing these stories around that are, like you say, trauma based, rather than painting the picture of it just being a beautiful experience. And, you know, it just is so powerful, isn't it? The mind is so powerful, and it's where you go to when you're in that, you know, that transformation, I suppose, you know, like you were saying, the board, you know, those images in your mind are so empowering, you know, if you can paint it in a beautiful way. Yeah, definitely, you know. So just for if anyone's listening to this as well, to be aware of it, like women, to be aware about how you speak about birth and how you speak about, you know, that to the next generation. I think that's a very powerful, I suppose, conversation that you can change people's attitudes around birth for women, you know, across the board, you know, definitely, you know, being conscious about how we speak about that, I guess.
That
knowing
moment.
That,
sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, and people think pain, when they feel a pain or a discomfort in the body, that they associate pain with something wrong, like something's wrong in my body, but it's like it's purposeful pain. It's kind of like it's designed to be here. So it's not something to run away from. It's something to, you know, to ride, I guess, ride the waves of the contractions rather than running away from it. So, yeah.
And we haven't mentioned that moment after birth. This is like my highlight, that moment when your baby is just born and your whole body just floods with that feeling that I've never felt any other time in my life. And it is the most incredible feeling. And this is what I describe to my daughters, you know, like that this is just something that men don't get the opportunity to ever feel. And it is the most incredible feeling. And they're still going, no, we're not having babies anyway, Mum. And I was like, okay.
Oh, really?
So I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best.
Oh, they may. Yes. Well, it's that so after birth you have 10 times more oxytocin in your bloodstream. So when you get that oxytocin to help with the labor and birth, after birth you get 10 times more for bonding, connecting, and breastfeeding. So it's kind of like that body designed to do it. Yeah. Some women don't get it straight after though either. Some women get it day 2, or some women are, depending on their labor, they may not have that real elation. So I will often say, you know, be with where you're at after the birth, because some women will get that big flood and some kind of get it later on.
I
But
think
yeah.
there's relief as well. Like for me, it was like that relief of like the baby's out, it's like
Yeah.
that added to it was just like this incredible feeling,
Oh.
like indescribable. But
And it's almost like, you're having
just,
a baby, but when you have it, I've had it. It's here.
yeah.
Yeah.
Great feeling. Great
And
feeling when it's on the other side.
absolutely amazing feeling. And Natlie, do you support women afterwards as well, after the birth? Or is it just
Tell me, what was that? Sorry?
sorry, do you
I
support
think that
women
cut out a little bit. Tell me.
sorry, do you support women after the birth as well? You know, do you
Not
have
really, not
support? No,
now.
no.
More so birthing and more so even before that. So I like doing workshops with women before they become, like when they're pregnant, before they go through labor, just to start understanding themselves and to get that self-love. Because I think if you have self-love, then you have that self-trust and you have that self-belief to actually get you through labor. As much as Calmbirth is specifically for labor, I love teaching another program just to teach women about to know themselves or understand themselves or get that awareness. But yeah, not so much afterwards. I'm putting together a program, the next 9, but I've just been too busy with Calmbirth. And I love it. I really do. Yeah. I could talk about it every day, but yeah, more
Amazing.
so
And what's
I
birth.
can see why.
what's the
Yeah.
program that you
Yeah.
called the one that's before the Calmbirth? What's that?
Flow.
Flow.
So
Beautiful.
fiercely loving open woman.
Wow, gorgeous.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. So,
beautiful. I love that idea. So you and that would be amazing even before people, start to think about having a family, I think as well, I think that would be amazing,
oh,
to give
definitely.
yourself time to kind of get to know yourself. Because, even the fear around planning to have a family, because I remember that myself on and off. I was like, will I do it? Will I not? Will I do it? Will I not? Oh my God. Like it was kind
Yeah.
of, oh, I have to jump in and decide, yeah, I'm going to. But I think definitely I would have the transition, especially from,
What was I mean, obviously
sorry, go ahead.
that that cut out, I think. Well, I know you said with the grandparents, they would say not to breastfeed. What was the kind of conversations around about birthing it and having babies? Was that the same? Or did they kind of discourage you or encourage you to have babies?
Oh, there was pressure to have kids, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Wanting
yeah.
to have a grandchild, grandchildren and stuff like that. And then I suppose me thinking that I might lose freedom and, I suppose, yeah, it was such a change because in my 20s where it was very career driven, I was always I had great passion for my work, creativity and design and, very, I suppose, yeah, like creative in the world, and I felt very empowered that way. And then I thought, when I was, if I decide to have children, what would that do? How would that clip my wings? That kind of way. Would my
Yeah.
freedom be taken from me? Freedom is a big thing for me. So it was the fear of losing freedom. And whether I
Yeah.
commit to that or not, this kind of way. So I think I love the idea of, specifically for my personality type, maybe like that kind of course would be amazing. Flow for somebody coming from, like, a, not that it was, I suppose, the transition. Again, it's like a transition period. We always talk about those periods in your life are always where you need support most, I think, because you're trying to go from one identity to another identity, and when you don't have support, where that bridge, somebody there to support you on that bridge of understanding what that's about, where again you get the rhetoric of, oh, God, you're going to lose your freedom, and you're told that as well. You're going to lose your freedom.
Oh,
You're going to lose your figure. You're going to lose everything. You know what I
oh
mean?
wow. Yeah.
This kind of thing. And yet you want to have children. You have this maternal instinct, and so it's this kind of, the cultural conditioning, and then I suppose you're designed to want to have children and to have that maternal instinct to create. It's another creation in the world, I suppose. and then I suppose the breaking down of the identity that you had of yourself. It's all, there's a lot that happens
Yeah.
in that kind of transition. So I love the idea of a course like that, that it kind of helps women before they even start to think about having children, so it'll ease. I wonder if that would even, like definitely ease the
Mm.
birthing
think
process.
so.
If you start way
Yeah,
before
I
that,
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely
And
think it
make it more
does.
conscious. The whole
Yes.
process would be more conscious then. Like
Yeah.
I know my process wasn't conscious at all. It was just what you did after you bought a house, got married, had a dog, then you just had a kid.
Yeah. And then
Like, it was
once you've
so
got one, they go, "Oh,
unconscious.
you have 2?" Yeah.
Two.
And you had 2 kids.
I
Straight
know.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Still
Yeah, and
here for more.
it's also, feeling like you don't have the skills, I mean, for me, I love education, I love learning, I'm constantly wanting to learn and learn more skills, but going into an area of life where it's unknown and you don't have to feel, you don't have the skills, you don't know what to do, you haven't really, maybe you're like, I suppose for me as well, I was living away from my family, I didn't have the support of my family around me, so I wouldn't have had,
Oh,
so that kind of fear of being
that'll be hard.
isolated, as well, and not having that. So it's kind of, there's a lot of, there was a lot going on there, so I just love the idea of that support, that could be given to women, because I think it is a stage where beforehand and after it as well, that's what I'm asking about afterwards as well, where all the attention kind of is put on the baby then, and maybe the mother doesn't have that support afterwards as well, from what's happened
I
to
think there's a
her,
huge
and having this conversation really like with the what she's transformed into and how she sees herself now, and there is the completely breaking down of the identity of who they were before, and then trying to understand
Yeah.
this new person that's being birthed, not just a child, but the mother has changed so much as well, and like,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
I like that idea of midwifing the mother into this new version of herself as well, and I think maybe that could help postnatal depression and different things as well, because we're kind of left on our own, I think, a lot of the time when it comes to supports like that. So making that more
You're
mainstream.
booted out of the hospital pretty soon.
Yeah,
You kind of
yeah.
left, and then it's like there's no follow-up care. I'm sure, there needs to be there's something there to support women, because unless you've got a good support network or good,
Mm,
parents or in-laws or just that sense of community, like how
mm,
we used to be in
mm,
villages, I
Mm.
just think women kind of, I don't know, they tend to compare,
yeah,
themselves to other people. I wonder how it is now with social media, and I mean, there's a
mm,
lot of good information out there too. I
yeah,
do think that people have access to a lot of information, which is great.
mm.
But I
But
also think there's
yeah, I think the
yeah.
lack of community is the big thing as well. Because like I grew up in a village and everybody was all around, and it was always that support of like aunts and uncles and cousins and stuff. But then when you become, like for myself in Ireland, we're rural based kind of communities, and then the new wave then was to go be educated, and then you always go to the city and you're away from your family. So there's a lot of people have been, I suppose, taken away from the supports of their family, so there's a lot of women. I used to go to like a women's support group for after having kids, in our local community, because I was raised in a community base.
Yeah.
I go to like, where's the community? Where can people get together? And I joined this group, which was amazing. And then I got all my friends to join it as well, and we used to go once a week, and it was fantastic. And I went to different
Oh.
classes with the kids. So I always like gravitate to like, some kind of community that will support you with what you're going through. Like, so I just feel like there's so many gaps in
Mm.
for women like that, and supporting them through transitions. And I absolutely love what you're doing, Natlie. It's just amazing. Like,
It
it's just
is.
fabulous. Really
I'd
is.
love to see it in
Yeah,
schools even, like just
yeah,
to open girls' eyes to the
yeah.
power of the female form, and
Yeah, that's
just
true.
laying the foundations of like,
Mm,
this is what we are capable of doing and how we can do it in a really powerful, like
mm,
supportive manner. Like it's just so
Well,
good.
like you
It's
said,
just
it used to
wonderful.
be secret women's business, so these women
mm.
would go off and have this strong and this strength and this power, and then it's almost like, yeah, it's just a whole different ballgame now. Look, it is slowly starting to come back where
Mm.
women are getting their power back. I think It's taught in a lot of the hospitals now, and there's birthing suites, and there's different, women aren't always getting on the bed now, which is great. You want to be kind of ideally in an upright position, so you can help gravity do the work instead of you kind of doing more pushing. So there is that essence about it, but I wonder how much we don't know from years ago, and what, or even other cultures, how they do it.
Yeah.
There'd be so much more information to know.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
Definitely.
That's
Yeah.
so amazing.
Yeah.
Thank
'cause
you,
there's a
Natlie.
lot.
That was just such a great conversation.
And we're all past having babies now, so I can't even help you with that.
We can all just reflect
Yes.
on the joy.
Just need to look forward to being the grannies, the nanas.
I know.
Well,
I keep saying to my kids.
Lisa, you're new.
How old are your boys, Lisa? How old are your
So
twins?
my boy, they're 30, and one of them has just had a baby recently. So I have my grandson is about 10 and a half months.
Wow.
So yeah, that's a bit
And
bizarre.
hopefully she had a nice experience. Yeah, my mum said you love them. She said it's a different love. It's a different level of love with your grandchildren.
It is different. She had not a bad experience, actually. It was a bit, the hospital actually was sort of made things very difficult. And in the end, she had a natural birth and it was all very quick, but there was quite a bit of confusion before that, I think. So, yeah. But she's very healthy, and my son and her get along very well. They're both really supportive of each other. So it's lovely, actually, to see your child in that role. Do you know?
That would be amazing.
I've never seen him in that role, and I just
you'd have to take some credit for that.
I guess I would, but just look at him and go, wow, like, I just think that beautiful that he can actually show up as a dad like that. Like, it's just lovely, really nice.
Well, apparently we learn our parenting skills in the first 2 years of our life. So
wow,
apparently, so that's for him to be a doting dad and a great parent like that, then that's come from you. Yeah. So
it's nice. Yeah, no, it's really nice to see, and they're really happy, and so it's good, isn't it? Like, life just goes on, the circle of life, and you just think, oh, where did those years go?
It goes too quick. I know. My mum's 74. She said the other day, I look in the mirror now and I'm just like, oh, I'm an old lady. She goes, I'm still the same inside. I said, my nan used to say the same at 93. So it's just, isn't it?
Yeah.
Come from a strong line of women, which is lovely.
It's beautiful, and it's just such beautiful work you're doing. Like, I just feel really inspired by that. I think it's lovely. I'm definitely going to tell everyone I know that's having babies.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for letting me brag about it and talk. Oh, great. It is.
I think it's really special work.
And Natlie, do you do online, like during lockdown and stuff like that? How did you have online courses?
Yes, so I've been online now. I've been online. Oh gosh, 2020 from March. Obviously, I did all that year, and then the following year, I kind of went back for a bit, then went back to on Zooming. I don't see a difference in what I think. It's actually, I've gone back face to face now, but I still do some Zooms. I think there's a time and a place for both. Some people, if they want to sit in their lounge room and not get into a position and compare themselves with the other dozen people in the room, that they can actually get, and you labor at home anyway. So I kind of go, find a good wall or find a good seat and see what feels right for you, because that's where you're going to be laboring essentially. So that I quite like that part. And the private ones on their own are even better, because they can ask you all the weird, wonderful questions. And I had a couple last night on, and they were hilarious. So we're all giggling, and and they do. Yeah. So it was, I think it's quite easy to do over on Zoom.
So do you think you'd be able to support people in Ireland? Is it something that you can? Are you
definitely. I've had people. Where have I had people? I've had people overseas. I'm trying to think where I've done a couple of people overseas. Yeah, it's just the time difference. That's all. It's the only.
Well, it's very doable. We're doing it here now, so it's very doable.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Get them ready. Tell them to breastfeed.
That'd be amazing. So no, I'm just putting it out there for the Irish audience that just because she's in Australia doesn't mean you can't avail of her services.
Yeah. Yeah. Birth like Thor.
Yeah.
Birth
I
like
love that.
that.
Actually, because I'm a major fan of Thor, so
I haven't even watched it, but I joke with my husband. I said, like they need to know they've got this strong power,
Yeah.
or Wonder Woman. I don't know. They are
Wonder
definitely
Woman,
Wonder
Yeah,
Woman.
Wonder
Another
Woman, for
favorite of
sure.
mine.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah.
All right, well, Natlie, that's a beautiful conversation. We might wind up now.
That's
Thank
so
you.
quick. It just time flies when you're having
50
fun.
minutes.
It's like,
I know, 50
I
minutes.
know.
We're always
Like,
amazed. We get in these
felt like 5
conversations
minutes.
and it's like, oh, I know. That's fantastic.
No, that's
It's
awesome.
so
And thank you for
inspiring.
sharing your stories. Thank you for sharing your birth stories with me.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah.
It's nice to share them. Like you probably don't, I don't know, you get to an age and it's like you're not talking about birth anymore. You're talking about other stuff, right? So it's like, oh,
Yeah.
lovely
Especially
to
when it
have
brings
the
you so much
opportunity.
joy. Yeah, awesome. Anytime. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Natlie.
you're
Lots of
welcome.
oxytocin.
Oh, thanks, Natlie. And I'm
Thank
so
you.
thrilled beautiful to being able to meet you because I've heard so much beautiful things
thank
about you.
you.
So yeah, gorgeous.
Oh, thanks, Caroline.
Stay in touch.
Thank you.
Thanks,
right,
Natlie.
cool.
Thanks, everyone,
See
for
you.
watching.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
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 See you back here on Monday.